Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring Sacrifice, an Incense and Iron role-playing game. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review featuring this role-playing game, where you fight the horrors of the Middle Ages and Christianity, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about enemy morale, healing and death, as well as fatigue. Let's start with enemy morale. Although demonic creatures are not affected by fear and cannot become demoralized, most human combatants will. After all, very few people, and certainly almost no normal beast, will fight to the bitter end and would rather flee for their lives. A human non-player character, either friendly or unfriendly, must make a morale check when certain conditions are met. For example, perhaps the leader is incapacitated, slain, or has fled. Or maybe 50% of the friendly combatants have been eliminated or have fled. This could result in an organized fighting retreat, or perhaps a retreat in disarray. These are just a couple of the outcomes of this check. Beasts and some monsters may have to make a morale check as well under certain circumstances, for example after losing 75% of their hit points. To perform a morale check, you roll a d20. A result of 10 or less indicates that the check has failed. The non-player character must then roll on the failed morale check table to determine how they react. There are also some modifiers according to conditions. For example, if a group takes casualties without inflicting any casualties, the modifier is -2 to the check. But if your leader is quite charismatic, you will get a positive modifier to your roll. Now let's talk about healing and death. All characters recover hit points through rest. A character recovers a number of hit points equal to their healing rate after each full day of complete rest under proper sanitary conditions. The character will not heal that day if the rest is disrupted. Medicine checks can speed up this process. And it's important to note that when a character's hit points drop to 0 or fewer, the character is unconscious and probably dead. The character's condition will not be determined until an ally treats its wounds. Or perhaps there is nobody around the character to perform a checkup. When this occurs, the unconscious character must roll on the injury table. You could obtain results such as: the character is in shock but alive. They recover 1 hit point and must spend a week in bed to fully recover. Perhaps the character is severely wounded and must spend an entire month in bed recovering from the injuries. Or maybe the character is dead. There are also going to be modifiers that affect these outcomes. Also, if the injury roll was between 1 and 15, and the character has somehow survived, they must roll on the permanent wound table. This roll is modified by the character's constitution modifier. Perhaps you end up with brain damage, you get a penalty to intelligence. Perhaps you end up with damaged tendons, so you get a penalty to strength. Or maybe one of your ears is destroyed, so now you have a disadvantage to perception. Now when it comes to fatigue, it represents exhaustion, exposure, hunger, injuries, and other physical factors which gradually wear a character down. If a character goes for too long without sleep or food, climbs a frozen mountain without proper equipment, or tries to cross an endless desert without enough water, they are going to start accruing fatigue. The most common reasons for accruing fatigue are going without food or water for 24 hours, or not getting any rest for longer than 24 hours. Environmental harshness, as mentioned before, can also be a deciding factor. Each level of fatigue adds to the effects of the preceding levels, piling up in a way that can become quite harmful very quickly. Each time a character suffering from fatigue gets a proper meal or night's sleep, their fatigue level is decreased by 1. So for example, if you get level 1 of fatigue, your speed is halved. If you have 3 levels of fatigue, you have a disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws using strength, dexterity, or constitution. Maybe you end up with your hit points reduced by half, or maybe your character dies from exhaustion. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about travel procedures, corruption, and experience points. As you can see, even though you have hit points in this role-playing game, this is quite gritty. If you are used to getting knocked out or defeated in other role-playing games without major consequences, this game is very different. You will end up with severe, perhaps impairing or disfiguring injuries, which I think fits great with the medieval theme going with this role-playing game. And when it comes to fatigue, I think it is sufficiently realistic, so you need to take good care of your character. Now when it comes to morale, this will give you an opportunity when fighting the more mundane threats in this setting, but when it comes to the more demonic foes, you need to rely on other things. Thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.